Hello, my name is Jacob, and I'm a Norse Pagan. And today, I'm going to be talking about god poles, or at least another crafting video about the gods. Because recently at a gathering, I worked more on the Freya statue, or Freya god pole, that I started back in the Georgia gathering around springtime. Now, if you watch this channel pretty religiously, you probably know what happened at the spring gathering in Georgia. Hello, my name is Jacob. I'm a Norse pagan, and I made mistakes today. I shouldn't use sharp objects, and I'm saying that in front of everyone here today. Be careful when you carve wooden idols to the gods. Thank you, and stay safe out there.
Hey Heath, you know what's really smart? Not cutting towards yourself. I learned that out the hard way.
Yeah. Okay, lessons learned.
We got free paint though.
Free paint.
But this time I brought protective gear, and I did not hurt myself. I did not cut anything else, but I do have a nice little scar from the last time I tried to. So no injuries this time. But I was at a gathering completing this god pole. So I want to share with you the progress I've made on that, as well as sharing with you what god poles really mean to us, if they have any historical significance, and what significance they have now in the modern pagan era.
Some of you may recognize the Freya god pole we've been working on since the Southern Gathering of last year that took a surprise blood offering from me when I sliced my hand on it. Today, I'm here at the Illinois Gathering, and I'm going to continue this work with a cutting glove and a Dremel to hopefully bring out her face more. So let's see how this turns out. Progress is going okay, but it's not going to be perfect. Just remember that.
So far as the history, most of my information is coming from one of my favorite books I mention all the time, Myths and Symbols in Pagan Europe. If you haven't picked this up and you watch this channel, you should probably do it. I don't get money from trying to sell this book, I promise you. But at the same time, this is one of the first books that really got me into the faith and really opened my eyes, because it connects the Germanic, the Celtic, and the Nordic information that we have and combines it into a faith that we can kind of follow today. So really inspiring piece of work. But one of the things it talks about is the importance of god poles, or pillars, throughout Celtic, Germanic, and Nordic history. And some of the best evidence actually comes from the Celtic era, because we have found the remains of what appears to be god pole-like structures, or at least images of the gods, or at least in the Celtic region. We also have evidence of the Romans recording about grim-faced deities within sacred groves that the Celtics had. Now, as far as the Roman recordings about the Celtic and Germanic people, when recording about the Germanic people, Tacitus did mention that they did not have any temples or idols to their gods, and they typically worshiped them in sacred groves. But within the writings about the Celtic people in the British Isles, this is quite different. It is mentioned that they did have sacred places, very similar to the groves as well, but they also had idols to their gods. Now, as always, this doesn't mean that this was universal. This was something that was recorded by the Roman people, and not even necessarily by first-hand accounts. But it's still enough to go off of, and when we actually look at the archaeological evidence, we do have evidence of the Celtic people having these godlike figures, but we also have evidence of the Germanic people and more of the northern middle part of Germany that did this as well. In fact, a place I really wanted to visit in Germany did have like a German recreation village where they did have a bog that they threw offerings into, and we see this within the Barbarians TV show of the throwing of objects as gifts into bogs. And we even see that carried through into Denmark, as many objects have been found, including bog bodies, and even, bent swords, jewelry, and other things that have been thrown into bogs to be given to the gods. And so this is something that we see in the Celtic and Germanic. But outside of god poles, you also have these pillars, and the idea of the central pillar or sacred trees, which we see within the Celtic, Germanic, and Scandinavian Nordic areas as well. And something that's really cool, of course, with the Germanic, we have the idea and the story of Irminsul, or the sacred tree, which obviously it's pretty easy to see as a connection to Yggdrasil. We even see this in the Slavic region as well, and you find this in the History of the Danes, the very last set of volumes that are almost impossible to find, but there is mentionings of a idol like pillar structure where they actually have a recreation of this as well, put up as an image. I believe it was to Svinbog or Svetovit. which is a four-faced deity, which is honestly really cool. And they have a recreation of it on the island today. The thing that's really fascinating about this is this information comes from the History of the Danes volume, like the volume 9 through 16. That is almost impossible to get, but it does describe this invasion, capturing and destroying this idol to Svetovit. And then within Myths and Symbols in pagan Europe, once again, we see the mentioning importance of trees and central pillars in a home within the Scandinavian region, which is really fascinating that a lot of homes were built around a central family pillar that was passed along through family lines and actually was the structure of multiple family homes. There's even a story of when people migrated to Iceland, they ended up taking their central pillar with them to Iceland to end up building a village there. And what they did was actually really fascinating. When they threw out this pillar into the ocean, wherever it landed onto shores where they decided to build their village. And then, of course, they also put this as the central pillar of that home as well. So it's not necessarily a god pole, but we see this importance of these pillar-like structures, especially within the spiritual practice. And not to mention just the connection with the Yggdrasil and just trees in general. It's something that we seem to be attracted to in the modern pagan era as well. Something that happens at our gatherings very often, we select a tree that is a god tree. And so the idea of god poles is something that we can kind of infer, maybe not exactly how I'm doing it in this video and not how others have done it in the community, but this idea of central pillars, sacred trees, and gods being carved into wood is something that seems to be embedded within our DNA, embedded within our pagan souls. So something that I'm really happy to be connecting more with now, especially carving more into this Freya idol. So we actually did take this out. I didn't get too much video footage of the offering itself, but we, after I got to a certain point, after doing a lot of work on it, obviously I have a lot more work to do on this god pole. It's sitting outside right now. And I need to get a little bit more, different drill bits for my Dremel to get the more finer details that I want out of it. But I plan on adding even like a cat idol and, a hawk idol as well into it, maybe even a Fehu rune. So really excited to see how it turns out and continues over the years. And of course, I will most likely be keeping you updated. But we did do a ritual to this right after finishing the work I had done, where we took it out to a nice wooded spot and we left offerings to Freya, and we ended up pouring them on the god pole, which is something I've seen in the actual usage of god poles as well, is a lot of times they have mouths that you put offerings into. How was the experience itself? It was pretty awesome to see something that I've worked on. Obviously, it's not perfect. I know there's probably people watching this video like, oh, that doesn't look like Freya, or that's pretty crap. But I still did it. And I think that's an important thing to note about this video, is it doesn't have to look great. I've seen god poles ranging from realistic to more animistic to, kind of having more natural elements to being very simple. I think what matters is actually carving and making something for a deity. And it's important to note within the small Voluspa or Voluspa and Skama, it mentions that Freya is a really easy deity to reach, and all you have to do is reach out to her and build her something, and she's going to be really appreciative of it. So a deity like Freya, I think, is going to be very appreciative of building something to her likeness, even if it's not 100% perfect.
I've been really procrastinating for a while getting this done, and now I'm just really excited to continue it. But this is something I really want to add to over the next few years. I was thinking about maybe adding a cat down here, maybe, Zingerman, the possibilities, and Fehu, Verkana runes into it. So yeah, there's a lot of options for this. We already did a little ritual, basically to, anoint it, so to speak, or bless it, whatever you want to say. It was a great little ritual where we just gave an offering to Freya. I kind of, said this is for her, thanked her for it, and, really had hopes and wishes for the future, and, children and grandchildren that get to see this, and people that may not even know my name anymore, get to at least see something I created for Freya. So really powerful experience, really humbling, and definitely recommend any way you can creating some form of god pole. Really great way to connect to the ancestors, great way to connect to the gods and goddesses as well, of course. All right, what are you filthy heathens doing in that field?
Everything and more.
I heard you coming for the gumbo. You stay away from that gumbo. It's mine.
Mine.
No, it's mine.
Got some good pictures for you.
Never mind, you can have some gumbo.
So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you've enjoyed the 2 segment here as far as the information and the actual carving of this. So what I really hope this encourages you to do, to get out there, wear safety gloves, and carve something to the gods. I think you're gonna be really pleased having something that you carved, something you put your work, maybe even your blood, sweat, and tears into, literally, that calls out to the deities, and I think you're gonna really be impressed with the response you get from it. So thank you so much for joining me for this video, and until the hall, Skull.